You see that all right?
Yep, looks great.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to jump right in and start with our membership recognitions, Tammy, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. I'm always up when we've got things to celebrate. So you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 new members that joined us during the month of June. So if any of you are on today, welcome. We are glad to have you here, and we hope to see you again at another event. We also had 4 people recently get their PMP.
Nice.
And Marissa, Gloria, Jamie, and Sandra, congratulations to you. This is a significant achievement. So we always like to take the opportunity to call that out and let everybody know how proud we are.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Good job, guys.
And we have a series of anniversaries, a number of people celebrating their 1, 5, or 10-year anniversary. If you are on this meeting, congratulations. Thank you for being here. I'm not going to read through the names. You can see them all here. So congratulations, and we appreciate you sticking with us at PMIWIC.
Nice.
And then I think this might be the final one this time, Project Bites. So I think this was mentioned at our earlier annual meeting just briefly. Project Bites is a great opportunity for you to earn PDUs for those lunchtime hours, maybe when you're not at a lunch and learn. You can just play them off their website, and they are just brief little items you can watch during lunch or be a break between meetings or at home, whenever it is, and earn some additional opportunity to keep your certification up to date. This is free to you. And if you do want to participate in Project Bites, what you need to do is just sling me an email at that email address there in orange, and I will let you know the code to get in for free. And then you are on your own. They have podcasts, they have videos. It's a great little resource. So I hope you try it.
All right. Great. Thanks, Tammy. And back to the financials, Karen. I think this is the slide we just saw.
It's similar, not quite the same. But this is, if you were in the last meeting, you know that where we landed at the end of May was just over $66,000 in all of our accounts. Our month over month, we were down, $379. So not a whole lot of movement in our finances month over month. I don't know if I have another slide.
You don't. Is Michelle on? Oh, I thought I saw you, Michelle. No.
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay. Do you want to speak to this? I know we went back and forth on this, but I know that, that there are some needs in this space that if you want to.
Yes. Everyone can read, so I won't go through the listed executive volunteers. If there's someone in the Meridian area that likes to go to events and would like to proudly represent PMIWIC, please reach out to me independently. Grateful for this term for all the volunteers that help support the marketing efforts. Today, we are collectively 1,255 followers across multiple platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I'd like to share that when we started our LinkedIn numbers, we started tracking carefully January 12th, 2022. We were at 432 LinkedIn followers, and today we're at 892 as of just before this meeting. So engagement has grown. You get more of what you focus on, and we focused on engagement and making sure that PMI is out there and known as a resource to the project management profession. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, and Dawn for helping out in that space. And so if you want to be part of that, reach out. Let Michelle know. All right, Cheryl, maybe this is your slide.
It is my slide, and I just wanted to reintroduce, as you had mentioned in the annual meeting, that our mentorship services program is going to kick off. We thought we were going to be able to do that this spring. That didn't happen. However, we have a mentorship executive volunteer. Colleen has stepped up to the plate. Thank you so much, Colleen. Appreciate that. And she will be able to take this program and run with it. And I believe the start date for this to actually roll this forward for our membership will be probably early this fall. We'll probably maybe even link it in with a career development timeframe, which is in September, where we do a career development lunch and learn, and we do a career development career panel rather in the evening event. So yeah, so look for opportunities, guys, for either being a mentor or being a mentee, and we will be pushing out information about that. Probably over the summer would be my guess, but I'll let Colleen run with that. I don't want to speak too much to that because that's kind of that'll be her wheelhouse. So yeah, looking forward to it and super exciting. And again, thanks to Colleen for taking on that role. Awesome.
Great, thanks. And I think Karen, this is going back to you.
Yep, thanks for that. So PDD next year is on Friday, March 1st, 2024. We'll kick off planning that event sometime in August of this year. So if you are interested in helping with this event, I would love to have a large team helping. But if you are interested, please send me an email at presidentelect@pmiwic.org. Like I said, we'll start planning that starting in August.
Great. Thanks, Karen. And we have some upcoming events. Again, I think I can speak to this, Cheryl, or you can.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to speak to it. No worries. So for Lunch and Learn, as we spoke earlier in, actually, I think it was a prior meeting Colleen had with our new members for our board. She talked about our cadence for our different meetings and how Lunch and Learns are the second Wednesday of each month. And typically, we've been dark in the summer, July and August. However, it was determined at our annual strategic meeting this year that we would try to perhaps maybe add a lunch and learn or two over the summer. So we polled our May and June attendees for those lunch and learns to ask what their thoughts were on that. And the results were that folks were kind of interested in maybe one for sure. Two was kind of iffy. So we chose July. And we are going to be partnering with our Project Bites partner, David Barrett, to put on Lunch and Learn for July 12th. And it will be 2 speakers on conflict management and strategic thinking. So it'll be great. And this is a live webinar. We did attempt to use, I think it was a previously recorded webinar as kind of an intro for one of our Lunch and Learns earlier in June. And I think there was some audio technical difficulties with that. So just know that this is a live webinar, no issues with that, and should be, again, great speakers, great topics. So, and 1 PDU for that. September 27th, as I mentioned earlier, is our career panel, and that will be virtual. And Janelle would normally give us a little more details on that, but she's not here tonight. So just know that that's coming up, and we'll be pushing more information out to you probably in August. And then, unfortunately, my screen just went dark, but I do believe the third one was Idaho Food Bank, and that's September 1st on Friday. And that is from 3 to 5. And Tammy, did you want to add any more to that for the Idaho Food Bank?
No, you got it right. This is a really fun time. You get to make a difference in the community. You get to meet some new people. And if you were there last month or earlier this month, I guess, actually, I think we did it on the 2nd, since it's still June. We got our hands in thousands of pounds of black beans. So if you like to do that sort of stuff, play with your food and make a difference, absolutely. Idaho Food Bank's where to go. So we'll see you on September 1st.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Cheryl. And yeah, these are great things to look forward to. So thanks. Which brings us actually to tonight's presentation. If you were here for the annual meeting, I kind of previewed this a little bit. So we're going to hear from some of our board members who went to the North America LIM conference in San Diego this year. And we're also going to be hearing from Tammy to talk about a little bit, what we learned from the focus groups that happened over the last couple of months. And so this is going to be hopefully informative to everybody, and we will get right into it. So again, it's a transition time. Do we go to a new thing, Cheryl, or are we all stick together in this one?
So we stick together in this one. So this is our evening meeting presentation, and so we just did our quick little board report out, and now we're going to jump right into. I think you and others are going to be giving us a presentation on your trip to the National LIM, right?
Yeah. Before we go, I don't know if people have the capability to ask questions or if they're being monitors, but if you do have any questions on the report outs, feel free to ask them as we kind of move over to the next bit.
Yeah, so Craig, do you want folks to use the Q&A? That's typically what we do for the Lunch and Learns. We leave chat open for just general comments, but then if they actually have a question for the speaker or the panel, they would put it in the Q&A.
That would be great. That'd be
Sound
great.
good? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing anything in there yet, but it's open
right.
for anybody that wants to ask a question.
All right, thanks, guys. Okay, so I'm going to kind of kick this off and facilitate as needed, but really I want this to be a kind of an open discussion from the folks that initially on this first part went to the North American Leadership Institute meeting, which is what LIM stands for, if you were wondering. We that took place in San Diego, sorry, I have to look at the dots here. There were so it's chapter membership focused group learnings, and we're also going to talk about. Oh, sorry.
Hey, Craig.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're not sharing anything.
I'm not sharing. Thank you. Well, I'm glad, because and you could tell just how crazy that last bit was. It takes a minute to share window. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. All right, can you see this now?
Yep.
All right, and I'm going to start over. So tonight's agenda, we're going to hear from the people who went to the PMI North America LIM. We're going to have a slide or two on what we learned from our focus groups, and we're going to have a brief, just talk about what we're doing over the summer and the planning. So that's what we're doing for tonight's event. All right. So just briefly, what is the North America LIM? And really, this is, if you guys have been following along with different PMI conferences and things that have been going on, the LIM is really chapter leader focused, right? It's to develop the chapter leaders to be effective leaders and have sustainable, successful chapters, keeping leaders up to date on PMI strategies and initiatives, helping leaders focus on the unique needs and goals of the region, and collaborate with fellow chapter leaders, regional PMI staff, and PMI executives and board of directors. So as opposed to the Global Summit, which we'll talk about a little bit, and there's one coming up, the Global Summit is really for practitioners, right? So if you're a project manager, whether you're a PMP, whether you're even part of PMI or not, the Global Summit is just a huge convention of practitioners that are coming together, and the topics are wide and varied, and there's hundreds of them. If you participated in the report out that we did after the Global Summit this last year. As opposed to that, you've got the LIM that is really focused on the chapters, right? This is really geared for chapter leaders, new and old, to come together and get kind of coaching and some strategy and advice and kind of share stories And so that's really what the North America LIM was. It's just a bunch of chapters in North America and their leaders coming together to talk about how their chapters are going and what we can all do to be more effective at what we're doing here. So kind of just wanted to open it up to 4 of us went, Tanisha, Karen, George, and I. It was in San Diego, which was a nice break from Boise in the early spring, and just kind of wanted to open this up and get people's overall impression of the LIM. So we can just top left. We'll just start with you, Tanisha, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. So overall impressions, very similar, Craig, to what you shared. I went to both the Global Summit and this was my first LIM. And like you said, the Global Summit was global, had a global focus. So people were there from all around the world, which was nice. People were there from diverse backgrounds, diverse professions, and various levels of experience with project management, right? Some didn't even know what it was, and some, were very familiar. Whereas LIM, like you said, our particular section was U.S. focused. It was focused, for our region and our area. So it really gave us more of a sense of community, in my opinion, a stronger sense of like belonging and really being able to connect with other chapter leaders that are in our area or around us. And the focus there was really on helping to grow the chapter, to equip leaders, to equip the chapter, to provide tools, technology, and resources. And so I thought that was great.
Great, thanks. George?
Okay, let me echo what Tanisha started to talk about also, the diversity. I was impressed at just how many different people and organizations and locations were represented. We had
walks us through their culturally competent programs and how the talent acquisition team partners with volunteer
hang on one second here
and their hiring efforts as veteran organizations.
Technical difficulties.
All right, we back.
Yep.
Hang on. Anyway, lots of diversity in the leadership styles. We had one exercise where they kind of took the room and had us physically move around based on a whole series of questions. Depending on your answer, you moved one direction or another, and it kind of split the room into 4 different quadrants, which matched the kind of the leadership or communication styles. And there are a lot of people in each quadrant. And so just reinforce the fact that the project management is not something that is limited to one particular leadership style, that you can be a successful project manager, leader with a variety and just work what best works for you. This is my first time, and so a lot of it was kind of brand new, trying to figure out what the overall objective was. And there were lots of opportunities for the PMI organization to give us good kind of general tools. But the sessions were a mix of the general tools with invited speakers from various chapters talking about what worked for them. And so some of the most interesting little nuggets would come from individuals and other organizations that say, here's what we tried and here's what worked for us on a little more specific items. And so we got some good ideas from those. All in all, I thought it was a great conference and great to rub shoulders with a bunch of different people. And one thing I did find out was that, especially at meals, everybody abandoned me. We didn't have meals together very often, which meant that you sit down at a table with people from other chapters or PMI leaders, and it's out of my comfort zone, but it worked great because I got a chance to rub shoulders with people from a lot of different environments.
All right, George. I don't know if we did that on purpose, but I
know, but it worked great.
It worked out. All right, Karen.
All right. So kind of I leveraged a lot of what Tanisha already wrote down about the Global Summit. So this was my first time at Global Summit last year and the LIM this year. And as was already mentioned, Global Summit was global. And I met so many people from around the world, which was amazing. I really appreciated their different perspectives. The sessions that were available, as Craig mentioned, there were, I think, 150 to 200 sessions that you could pick from, and the topics were very diverse. They were, project management focused, or they were chapter best practices. I mean, it was just really diverse, and I really enjoyed Global Summit, despite the fact that you had to walk miles between meetings and sessions. The LIM, again, as Tanisha said, was US focused, definitely more of a sense of community. It was really great to meet other chapter leaders, within our region and outside of our region. And as George already mentioned, there were times when they actually forced us to network with people outside of our little group. And so there was one session where they had us divide out by our title. So they had all of the finance people together and presidents together and things like that. I got late. I was late to that lunch, and so I was desperately trying to find a table with a space, and I finally found one. I sat down, and lo and behold, the person sitting next to me was the VP of Finance from our Eastern Idaho chapter. So that was really great to meet up with him and find out what they're doing. And we actually were able to meet up, with their other representatives later that evening. So it was really great to meet other chapter representatives, again, get their feedback, get their best practices. One other thing I wanted to mention that I really appreciate about the LIM was that, at least in the finance group, they started a Slack channel. They also have a WhatsApp group. They also have a LinkedIn group as well that they started. I think they're focusing on this LinkedIn group, but it has finance VPs from many different chapters. And so if you have a question, if I have a question about finance or how someone else might be doing something or what their processes are, I can just post that out there and someone will respond. There's been a lot of activity since the LIM in April. So I feel like that's been really great.
Good. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, and I again have to echo everything that you guys have been saying with, the interface with the connections with the chapter leaders. My experience is a little bit different because I went to the LIM, I don't know how many years ago. It was pre COVID LIM. Oh no, it wasn't. It was in Florida. So we went to the LIM, and I had such a great time because of what everybody has been talking about with, the kind of the camaraderie within our chapter leaders, and there was always something. There was always an icebreaker, right? There was always something like, so what do you do in your chapter? Well, and there it is. And so, we had that tight kind of community, and then global was it just hit me wrong, right? Because it was so different and so many more people, and there wasn't that chapter community. As I've considered it, and I've talked to other people that went, I kind of, well, that was a lot of it was me and my expectations, and it didn't work exactly together in my brain. That said, I agree that they are both different things, and that the objective is different. Interesting note, in the a couple of the leadership calls that I've had, they have said that the upcoming Global Summit is not going to have any chapter stuff. Their feedback that they received was that there was so much going on, and as they tried to put the practitioner stuff along with the volunteer chapter topics, that it was just too much, and it was too crazy. So just a note to those of you who may be attending the Global Summit, it is going to be, I guess, entirely practitioner focused. So that is what it is. All right. This is just in there. I think George, you spoke to the Spencer Horn, the communication impact, the styles. I like you. I enjoyed that a lot. It was interesting to hear from Pierre, the PMI president and CEO, just talking about what kind of what he's doing and where the institute is going at a global level. And then something I'm appreciating about PMI at these events, they tend to throw in some kind of odd thing or kind of artistic thing. At Global Summit, it was the woman who what did she do? Was it with music or with? It was with
music, Beatty
yeah.
Wolf. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. So she was there and kind of it was just different because it's kind of these aren't PMs, they're people with really different perspectives about what how maybe projects are done or what we're doing as an organization. And this at LIM we had Phil Hansen talking about embracing the shake. So he's an artist who ran into some difficulties, some physical problems that he thought would end his career, but kind of just changed it, right? So it was fascinating, some of the stuff he did and engaged the participants. So I don't know if you guys want to bring in anything about the keynote speakers, but you're welcome to. All right. So breakout highlights. So there, like I mentioned, when we came back from Global, there were hundreds, or at least not hundreds, but maybe like 150 to 200 different things that were just kind of a tidal wave of stuff. So I don't know if we want to talk about a few things. I had a couple. One, I was talking about the Embrace the Shake. Just briefly, it really was his story about how he really wanted to be an artist and he was really good, but he developed some condition where his hands shook, and he just couldn't do the type of art that he had been doing. So he just transitioned and started doing stuff with stuff that he could use. Broken things, you break plates and turn them into art or whatever. And I just thought that, the moral of the story was not lost, I don't think, on anyone, right? Is that you can actually, utilize and make use of the things that you would normally maybe think as limitations, right? Or handicaps. You can actually, embrace those things to further whatever you want to do. And then there's another session on collaborating across generations. So I kind of had trouble finding stuff for this our presentation, our talk tonight, because so much of it was really focused on how do you maintain a board of directors, right? How do you do this and that within the chapter, really kind of specific chapter things, but there was enough other things that made it more interesting that way. So collaborating across generations really talked about how do you bring in hang on for a second, I have little munchkins coming in. 1 moment, please. All right, I'm back. They're cute, but loud. So really talking about how do we kind of engage younger people, right? Specifically younger people coming out of school. How do we bring them into not only the PM professions, but to volunteer on our boards, right? And it was really just a lot about kind of it's the whole diversity conversation, but specifically from a generational standpoint. So you're talking about, Gen Zs and millennials and those guys that are coming in. And do they feel comfortable at the table, right? Are they, it's kind of like, should they be at the kids' table and we're at the adult table? And how do we treat them, right? Do they see themselves as value add in our chapters, right? And specifically in our boards. And there was just a lot of kind of give and take, and really valuing the opinions of and experiences of various people, and it goes both ways. So I got a lot out of that collaborating across generations session. So all right, I'll stop now. I don't know if you want to go in order, Tanisha, or
Sure, I can go next.
Sorry.
All right, so the two sessions that I chose to highlight, the first one was called Air or Spare. It was talking about chapter mistakes that often lead to conflict. Some of the key takeaways that I thought were very impactful were around creating a value and understanding a value proposition for the heirs, for the future, for the volunteers, for the folks that make up your chapter, trying to figure out ways of how to create more of a growth mindset, and really developing pathways, clear pathways for growth and development, and opportunities for volunteers, which they call the heirs, right? So the chapter members, right, the heirs, to really be able to see a clear path forward, be able to get experience in leadership within the chapter at kind of more entry levels, to help to build their skills and their experience, as opposed to them feeling like they're a spare, right? So really embracing new ideas, embracing kind of more out of the box thinking, or maybe it doesn't follow the traditional, this is how we've done it. This might be a little different, right? But really trying to embrace that, and what does that look like? And all of those things would help with succession planning. And so I thought that was really good. It's important that we are very mindful of how we treat people, how we treat our volunteers, how we treat our members, how we engage with them, so that we can create lots of heirs and no one feels like a spare. So that was one. I guess you want me to do my next one too?
Sure, might as well. And again, if anybody has any questions, just write them in the. It's not the chat; it's the other one. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So the next session that I thought I would highlight was a session on energy leadership. And the definition of energy leadership is a form of leadership that is based on the understanding that your thoughts inform your emotions, which influence your behaviors. I just thought that this was a really powerful little session. They had us do some exercises in this session where we broke up into groups of 2 and we shared a experience, and then we broke down that experience, the listener. So there was a storyteller and a listener, and the storyteller shared their story, and the listener helped the storyteller to break down their experiences into 4 groups, which align with this energy leadership, which is thought, how did you feel, your emotion, what was the emotion that came from, that experience, what was the behavior, and then what was the outcome. And then from there, we did reflective questions. I just thought it was really, really, really a very powerful way to look at interacting with people, leading people. When we talk about leading with intention and, really being engaged, being able to listen, being able to really break down our experiences, right? And understand and be able to articulate, this is our feeling, and how did our feeling connect to our behavior? And maybe there's opportunities for change or for growth and development in those spaces. They talked about 2 types of energy, anabolic energy, which is constructive energy that builds up, that provides the ability to grow, to create, and to solution. And then catabolic energy, which is a draining energy that tears down, and it provides the ability to react to an immediate stressor. So again, thought that was really insightful. Another kind of key takeaway from this was these reflection questions that I mentioned just a minute ago. They talked about when you are in a conflict or in a discussion with someone, kind of helping to center yourself and helping to ground yourself. 3 reflection questions. What do I know for sure? So not what I have deduced, but what do I know for sure? What do I really want? And then what is my next best step? And so using those 4 principles of breaking down your situations into what is the thought, what is the emotion, what is the behavior, and then what is the outcome, and then following on with those reflection questions, I thought was very meaningful and very useful for us as chapter leaders and for us as leaders and project managers overall, right? We're always dealing with conflict and situations. And so I thought it was a great learning and a great takeaway.
Great. Thanks, Tanisha. Yeah, I was in that session too, and it was a lot of it was like over my head. It was like, what is he talking about? But it was a very good session. Karen?
Okay. All right. So this first one, PMI membership for your career. I thought that we were going to talk about kind of how they were changing up the membership levels, which was the original topic, but they discovered as they piloted this new, I can't remember membership levels, the PMI realized that it wasn't going to work. So they pivoted this particular presentation on really more around PMI member benefits. And there were, they talked about, again, how many members we have, things like that, why you want to be a PMI member, why you want to join a local chapter, things like that. But there were actually some things in there that were eye-openers for me that they offer, that PMI.org offers. One, there are publications that are available to you. If you are a member of PMI, there are publications available to you, like the PMBOK online. That is free to you. There were a couple of other books they had that I can't recall off the top of my head that are available free to you. I have the slides, so I'm happy to share all of this information. I actually sent this over to Tammy, our VP of membership, earlier today. But the big thing was that they have subscriptions to business periodicals that you as a PMI member have access to, like 1,700 periodicals, things like Forbes, like other business publications. So if you are interested in those types of articles, or if you need to research something, they have access to all of those, and you as a member have access to those periodicals for free. So that was pretty amazing to me. And what was funny was that Jason Harbonic, and he's our operations liaison for Region 1, for our chapter in Region 1. He said he works for PMI, and he actually didn't know that either. And so that was a learning for him. So that's kind of a little known fact. You also get discounts on other types of learnings, like webinars and things like that. I think the percentages, I think it's around 30% discount. So, you can check all of that out on PMI.org. I mean, they have just so much information out there. I know it's a little difficult sometimes to navigate. But if you have any questions about that, again, feel free to reach out to your board here, and we can certainly help with that, or ask our liaisons into PMI. So that was really interesting to me. Again, if you're not a member of PMI, I highly encourage it. If you're not a member of PMIWIC, I encourage you to become members. And there's just so many benefits. So that was pretty amazing to me. The next session that I wanted to highlight was one called Lights, Camera, Action. And this one was really interesting to me. It was I think it was the Massachusetts chapter who presented this. And they were trying to find different ways of doing events for their chapter. And they stumbled across this idea of doing something that's more like a talk show. And they've kind of, started off, they said it was kind of rough, but they kind of just kept with it and progressed and made improvements along the way. But they have an MC, they have someone who hosts the show. So think like The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon, or Jimmy Kimmel or whoever. They kind of have that kind of atmosphere. They will film it, and they will have sometimes they'll be seated at an in-person type of interview, but they'll have a host and a person who is an expert in something, whatever they're presenting that night, and they'll do this question and answer with this particular person, like in a talk show fashion. So I thought that was really interesting. They film all of these, record all of these, and they place them all on their YouTube channel. So that was interesting to me. And what was also interesting was they really are thinking outside of the box, because they were actually thinking, let's take this on the road. And they want to have like a talk show band. They really want to turn it into more of a talk show type of event. So I just found it really interesting that we as a chapter can really, with our events or with the activities that we do, we're not just stuck doing what we've always done in the past. I mean, these people are really thinking outside the box, and as we partner with these other chapters, and I think we can gain greater insight into what's working well for them and maybe what's not working well for them, and go beyond what we're doing today. I mean, I'll be interested to see if this particular chapter really takes this on the road, and if they really put together a band. I mean, they were talking about they already had people signed up to play instruments and things like that. So I'll be interested to see how that goes.
All right. Thanks, Karen. Hey, George, I didn't apparently get any content for you, but do you have something to share?
Yeah, I think I've already talked about the one session that was looking at the varied communication styles.
Yep.
And the other session that I thought was interesting was there was one presented by, I think it was a New York chapter, on surveys. And I thought it was interesting because they started out sharing their first attempt at doing a fairly extensive survey. And if I remember right, they said it took almost an hour to go through that survey. And they were trying to get a lot of real details from their membership. And of course, everybody agreed that finding out what your membership needs are and getting to know membership a little bit better is a good thing. But this first survey was about 100 times overkill in terms of, do people really want to spend an hour filling out something in great detail? And then they talked about some of their further iterations that got a little bit more focused on learning one or two things at a time, rather than have people go through this huge long survey all at once. And two things. Number one, it seems like an obvious conclusion that shorter, more focused surveys are a good thing. But the second thing was that I was really impressed with this chapter's willingness to show a bad example of, here's what we tried, this didn't work. And they said, all right, this next one worked better. And then this next one worked better as they started to refine it and make use of the feedback they were getting to really focus on just a couple things at a time. And that's one of the things that we need to work on, is to learn our membership learn what the real needs are for the chapter and how we can help to meet those needs. And surveys are a great tool to do that, but there are ways to do it wrong and better ways to get some better results. And that was a very practical result from one of the sessions that I thought was particularly focused on that.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Great, George. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. It was I thought it was just a great time. So real quickly, the takeaways. We don't want to spend a lot of time on this. We want to give Tammy some time to talk through her slides. So real briefly, if there's some things that you want to highlight as far as takeaways are concerned, let's spend a minute or two doing this. So I guess we, again, start at the top. Tanisha, George, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I wanted to highlight one thing would be just working to align, right, to the bigger PMI strategy, making sure that, we take advantage of those opportunities and, the goals and objectives that they are setting. We learned about some of the opportunities there, like the volunteer thing, and when we did that big volunteer effort, and that there were some opportunities for us to highlight some of our things in that space. So just really kind of honing in on that.
All right, George.
Okay, you said most of it already, but again, there's a good new volunteer tool at PMI Global that looks interesting. There was a push to update our documentation to make sure that it matched what we're really doing. And Craig's already started a process of reviewing our operations manual to do just that. One comment was maybe we could investigate using ChatGPT and the AI for content creation, because we create a lot of content, and it's kind of an ongoing thing, but we don't want to turn everything over to AI, but it might be easier to edit something that an AI tool would have created than to come up with something from scratch. And so just an idea. I learned that chapters can provide guest memberships, and didn't realize that before going to the conference. I thought, hey, maybe we can make better use of that to try and get new folks interested in joining us. And the last one's most important, is make it fun. Whatever we do, make it so that it's not just, gee, I have to go to this PMI thing, or yeah, it's going to be another boring meeting. Figure out how to make it fun.
All right.
Agreed. Yeah, so for me, I mean, kind of similar things, learn and leverage from what our other chapters are doing. I mean, everyone's doing something, and, we don't have to, I don't think we ever have to start anything from scratch, pretty much. Take advantage of our PMI Global offerings. Like I said before, the Business Reading Center, that's where you find those periodicals, virtual events that they offer, the VEP that George just mentioned. Let's take advantage of those things that PMI Global offers. Last one is engage with our members in a more meaningful way. I'm not sure what happened to full way at the end of that sentence, but that's, what that was my point there, was, going back to what Tanisha was saying, how do we build more community among our membership?
Okay, great. And I won't repeat everything. One thing I learned from Pierre's presentation was to delay making irreversible decisions. I thought that was a great rule of thumb, or rule to live by, is that if you know something is going to be irreversible, delay making that decision. So that was different than, hey, you got to make quick decisions and move things along and do this. And he's like, nope, it's irreversible. Just take your sweet time. All right. We got some slides out here, and some pictures of things we were doing. PMI does try to make it fun and get some things going. Met with other groups. There's the Eastern and Western Idaho chapters there in the middle. the selfie with Pierre, that Karen grabbed him and did that. Just meeting other chapters, right? Canadians up in the top right, and the volunteer stuff that we did on the top left there. And yeah, Together We Can was the theme, and there we all are. So it was fun, and I would encourage you to participate. That's one of the, before we hit to Tammy here, one of the perks of being on the member on the board is that we really try to get our board members to go to these things. The board does subsidize as much as we can. So if you're interested in going to that specifically, check out being a board volunteer. Little carrot there to dangle in front of you guys. All right, Tammy. You're wondering if we're ever going to get to you, so have at it, because this is really important. This is kind of one of our key objectives for the first for this year, is to get this stuff going. So.
Well, Craig, I was just amazed listening to your whole talk that you did with the team. Thank you for going to that and providing such a great lead in to these results, because what you're going to hear is that the feedback that we got from our membership is very much in alignment with the takeaways and the things that you learned and the things that you heard. So I think we're right. We're right with everybody else there. We're hearing the same thing. So as Craig had mentioned, over, I think, late May, we put together some focus groups. We got some people to volunteer, and they provide some fabulous feedback. So what we have done is we've taken all that information, consolidated it into topics, taken out anything that would help you recognize who it was that said that particular item. We wanted this to be a safe space and totally anonymous to those people that participated, and put it all together. And we're going to take that information and the things that you've heard about tonight, bring that to our board planning meeting, which is going to be happening over the summer, as we're looking at what are we going to do over the next year. And hopefully from that, we can come up with some really good and great and exciting things for us to look forward to. So if you could switch to the next one, please. So when I summarized all the information over these multiple sessions, there were a few things that stood up, and you can see that right here. And this is the part where I'm hearing the same sort of thing that you heard at LIM. Mix it up, be creative, do it differently. Don't necessarily do the same thing again and again and again. I struggle with complacency, and I think everybody does. So we want to try to make this fun for everybody, keep people engaged, and, still provide them what they need. We don't have to change it so much that it's, way out of whack and nobody likes it. There was a lot of feedback about looking for opportunities for people to learn better and to learn from each other, right? So we wanted more opportunities for our participants in our membership to connect and share with each other around specific topics, around different ways of networking. So we want to look for that. We also heard that we would like to have more opportunity to learn from PMI experts. And I can tell you from my experience, the PMI website is not that intuitive. I struggle to find things. Even though I've been using it more, it's still a little bit difficult. And I imagine that other people are feeling that too. And we got a lot of questions about, well, how do I do PDUs and what counts as a PDU? And how do I register those? And where do I find this? And Karen told us about some things that, maybe we didn't know about, having this library of information available on the PMI site. So I think we can do a better job teaching our own membership how to gain from those great things that PMI offers so that we can all benefit from it. They also highlighted the need to have better new member assistance. So we'll have to look at the right way to do that, giving new members a good introduction to the organization, helping them become engaged, and helping them be part of moving the organization forward. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. The other thing that I heard, which was based on some questions we asked, because you did hear earlier that we're involved in social media, we're involved in emails, we talked about a website, we have PMI's website. By far, everybody said the email is the best way to communicate. So we're going to continue to leverage that. Still have the other things available, of course, but we wanted to make sure that we understood what the best way was to communicate to you. So those are the recurring themes that came up in the conversations that we had with everyone. Next page.
Thanks, Tammy, for taking the lead on that and setting those things up. I know that was a lot of work, and hopefully, we will, like you said, translate this into something actionable as we move forward. So thanks. And if you're listening in, this is hopefully not the first and last time we'll do this, right? We want to continue to give opportunities for the membership to give us feedback and just make it easy for you to do that. So yeah, so this is great. Sorry, you had another slide, Tammy.
That's all right. That's all right. So this is just a little basic word cloud, giving you some more information and detail here. It's just so you can kind of see some of the things that people brought up. There were a very large number of great ideas about different types of events, different things we could do for our communities. So that level of detail is there for us behind the scenes. And I just wanted to share a lot of that with you today. And that's a bunch of key ones right there. So if there's anything that you think we might have missed or that you feel that we need to include in the planning process, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is on the screen. You can just go ahead and send it to me. We'll just include your feedback with the other anonymous feedback with everybody else that had participated. So feel free to reach out if you feel like we are missing something important and we need to include it. So thank you so much for those people that participated. And I think this was my last slide, Craig.
Right. Thanks, Tammy. I'm going to go. Yeah. Okay. So we got one slide left, just upcoming events and activities. Our chapter is kind of, we call it dark over the summer. There's some, basically we understand that everybody does stuff and this isn't the highest priority. So we found over, historically that people just aren't interested in doing a lot of stuff, but the board is. So the board of directors does all kinds of onboarding activities for our new board members. We have annual planning strategy sessions for the chapter as we talk about what we're going to be doing for next year. As I mentioned in the annual meeting, this is the 25th anniversary. So I don't know if Janelle knows this yet, but we'll be doing something, or maybe it'll just be a theme of some of our activities. But we do want to highlight our 25th anniversary and celebrate that. The Global Summit is planned for October 25th to 28th in Atlanta. We talked a lot about this. Obviously, it's practitioner focused, so if you're interested in going, there's the website. It's available on the PMI.org website. So that it'll probably be a great event. So that's in October. And then, as Karen mentioned earlier, our chapter professional development day is scheduled for March 1st. Of 2024, and that takes a lot of planning, a lot of volunteers. So if you're interested in helping out, really in any capacity, whether you want to be driving, getting all the speakers, to just helping people register day of, Karen wants to hear from you. So I think that is the end of our slide. I don't know, George, if we have any questions?
A couple questions. We got one from Colleen that asks about the global being more practitioner focused. Does it mean they're going to reduce the number of sessions? And
yeah, I kind of got the feeling that was part of it, right? It was so overwhelming to people. And that was some of the feedback they got. So I don't know exactly what that meant. Kristen mentioned it in the R1 leadership call this week. So I don't know exactly what that meant, but the mixture of both didn't seem to work very well.
Yeah. And then Tammy had asked, wondering what our key takeaways were. And I think we covered that, but Tammy, was there anything in particular you wanted to hear?
No, I was just really interested in how what you learned and what you heard is going to apply to us. I mean, it was all very interesting information, but I think you got to the key takeaways on that last slide, and I
Yeah.
probably put this up a little bit too early. So I think we're good.
Tammy, though, something I thought when we were going through that slide, as well as yours, and I don't know, Tanisha, it'll be your meeting, but when we do get together to talk about that, maybe circling back around to some of these ideas, because there were some really interesting things that maybe we can incorporate into what we're doing as a chapter moving forward.
That's all I see for questions.
All right, guys. Well, we are at time, so thank you very much for everybody who participated in presenting and everybody who came. I hope you got something out of this. That was a good takeaway. And if you have any questions for me or any of the board members, feel free to just ask away, because we're here to serve you guys and just have a great PMI experience. Rah, rah.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank
Everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.